Hi, in this video I will teach you how to create a basic website using HTML and CSS. I'm in Visual Studio Code, our integrated development environment. I'm first going to create a folder on my desktop. So I click on File, New File, File, Open Folder. Let me select my desktop and then right click, creating a new folder. My website. Selecting it, and this will open up my folder. I'm first going to close the Get Started page, and we're going to start with creating an index HTML page. An index HTML page is the home page of a website. Anytime you are on a URL like www.google.nl, it will first look at the index HTML page and then display it on the screen. We first have to identify that this is a HTML document. So I'm going to write code doc type HTML. This will tell the browser that we're working with an HTML file, and there will be more syntax rules following along. But what we can also do is just type an exclamation mark and then select the first item, and this will create a boilerplate with the basic structure of an HTML page. Let's go over some of the details. The second line is an opening tag starting with an HTML tag. We're going to specify on the browser which type of language we use. In this case, it's English. In the header file, we can give some metadata that describes on the browser with what type of characters they need to work with and also how to work with the width of a device. Method charge set UTF-8 is the most used character type set that contains almost all letters and symbols of all languages. With meta HTTP equivalent, XUA compatible will tell the browser to make use of the latest Internet Explorer version if somebody uses it, and that is Edge. With meta name viewport content, we are describing that the width of a web page should be as wide as the device width, because it can be different on a laptop and it can be different on a smartphone. In the title is what we see in the right top of a document. Let's run this file. There are multiple ways of running a file. So I could go back to my desktop, go to my web page and double click it. And doing this will open up my document file, also my web page. And notice that here the title says document and it's also reflected in here. Now I'm going to make a change. So let's say I want to have this my website. I'm going to save it by pressing Ctrl Save, or you can go to the File and tap Save. You can also turn on Auto Save. This will automatically save it depending on your preference settings, like every 5 minutes. I'll go back. I'm going to refresh the page and it reflects my website. Doing it this way means that you constantly keeps on saving it, and then you need to refresh your page. That's actually an easier way. What you could do is install an extension that's called Live Server. So if you go click on this icon in Visual Studio Code and search for the extension Live Server. Now the Live Server is in place. I click on the first icon and you can click on Install. Doing it this way, anytime you save it, it will also automatically be visible in your browser. So let's go back. And in order to work with that, you have to click on Open Live Server. So that's what I'm going to do right now. By opening up the Live Server, it's opening up the web page. So anytime I make an adjustment, it's automatically reflected on the browser and on my web page. This way, you don't have to save it and refresh it anytime. Let's keep these things close to each other and let's go a little bit further. Every HTML tag starts with an opening tag and also a closing tag. They usually have the same words, like we have the head and we have a closing head. This is the end of the head statement. The body is where the full web page is. This is where you can write down content. It will create the structure of your website. Let me add some title. I'm going to add a header using the h1 tag. And because I work in Visual Studio, it automatically ends up also with a closing tag. Almost all the tags that you have in HTML should always have an opening tag and a closing tag. Let's write some text. My website title. And notice it is automatically represented here on the right side. This is an HTML tag. We can also have different subtitles, and we can use different versions of different tags. So this is my subtitle. As you can see, my website title, and here we have my subtitle. This is all part of the structure of your website. I can also do something like creating a button by calling out the tag button. We have an opening and a closing bracket, and an opening tag and a closing tag. And notice that here we have a little thing that looks like something that you can click. Now I can add click me, and that will be the text that's inside of the button. If I'm going to work with buttons and I later want to style it, we can use something that's called CSS. CSS is a way of styling it, giving it different colors, making sure that it's centered, all the text. These things is what we can do using CSS, which we can do right now. So I'm going to click on adding a new file, and I call this style.css. I press enter. And in order to work with CSS, there's always something that's called a selector. I want to select the body of my web page. So I will type in body, opening bracket, curly bracket, and I'm going to change the background color. So I click on type in background color. And the nice thing with Visual Studio Code is that you will get some help with writing down the code. So I type in visual background color, and I see a lot of examples. Here it's represented using an hexadecimal number and letters to define a color. I'm going to choose aqua. I'm going to save it. And it still doesn't reflect it here on the website. And the reason why it's not reflected is because they are not connected to each other. So the second thing that we have to do is connect our CSS file with our HTML file, our HTML document. We can do that by referencing it in the header. So I'm going to type something that's called link relationship. We're going to create a relationship from the type style sheet. Style sheet represents that we're going to link it using a CSS style sheet. And then we need to reference the source. So the source. And the source is the style CSS. So it should be between those quotes, style CSS. And we have a closing tag. I made a quick mistake. It shouldn't be source, but it should be href, referencing it. HTML referencing to the site. Source is something that you use, for instance, for images, which we'll come on to later. Now that I've created the background, I might want to specify and make changes to specific elements on my web page. And we need to identify if I want to select this. This is a header, and this is header 2. So within the style sheet, what I could do, header 1, I'm selecting it, and I can change the color of the text. So I type in color and give it the text red. And as you can see, the header 1 will be red. If I would create another header with the same h1 tag, this will also be red. It's because the style sheet selects every h1 tag on your web page. Now I go back, And if I want to specify H2, I want to select H2 and give it a color and call it blue. And as you can see, now it's blue. There's also some other ways how you can select specific elements of your website, and that is by creating dividers and spans and give it a class name. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's say I want to create a paragraph. I'm going to type in. This is an acronym that will create a div class and then the name that I provided. So this will be some text. And this text, if I want to do something with this text, I can then later call out this class inside of style sheet. So this will be some specific text. Now that I've created it, I go back to the style sheet and I go down and I want to call out the text. So I use dot text, opening sign, closing bracket, opening bracket, closing bracket, and I want to change the color of the text into green. So I can give actually whatever name I want. I could also call this class funny. When it saves it, it returns back to black because that's the default color. But if I want to call out funny, I just call this funny. And here you can see it has been reflected. This is the first step of creating an HTML file, CSS file. But let's say if I wanted to do some interactivity, I would like to click it and then something to happen. In order to do that, we need to use JavaScript. So I'm going to create a new file and call this script.js. The extension JS reflects that it's a JavaScript file. JavaScript is there to create interactivity on a website. To give an example, we first need to connect the JavaScript file to our HTML file. There are actually two ways of creating JavaScript on your web page. We could do it actually inside of HTML by just calling out a script. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just call out the script tag. And the script tag will be run as soon as I run the web page. I'm going to write some JavaScript keywords alert for popping up a message. When I have an opening sign, you can see it tells me what argument I can provide. In this case, it will be some type of message, and that should be within quotes. So I call this hi. And with JavaScript, it's a good practice to end every sentence using a semicolon. So press save. Now if I would refresh the page, now we should see hi popping up. But we organize things in files, so it's clear. We don't want, in some cases, you do want to have it on one page, but it's better to organize the different structures in different files, so that's why we also move it around. And then create scripts, files, documents. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to change this script and then put it in the script.js file, and then also make a relationship to this script file. So instead of having this in here, I'm going to cut it and paste it in here. The script tag that I have here right now, I could actually remove it, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the source. So I want to have an external file in here. So I'm typing in script source, and this will reflect it where my JavaScript is. Because it's in my local folder, there's no underlying folder structure, I can just immediately call it out by typing in script.js. I put in script.js, and every opening tag should also have a closing tag. So also close this down with script. And now it should be reflected in here. But if I refresh the page, you will see it runs the code. And it's because we have the script tag. The script tag of JavaScript, you usually put it on the lowest line before the body tag. So the page is already rendered, all the text will be rendered, and then any type of interaction will be loaded. This is a way to make it run faster, your website. So this was the basic introduction of working with a website in HTML and CSS.